My name's Gerard Drohan, Jr. I'm the president of the organization this year. Just to give you a little heads up, I'm second generation. My father was president in 1988 and a Mechanics Institute graduate in 1961. So I could talk about this place forever. And I've been coming here since I was a kid, and I really love it, really consider it home. But like I said, I could go on. But I remember there was a magnet on the refrigerator when we were growing up. It had a picture of Abraham Lincoln's head, and it said, "Better to remain silent and thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." So I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. It's a great organization. You're going to hear a lot about it tonight. Polly, I can't thank you enough for writing the book. It's an honor to be a president when this book is coming out. It really is. So with that being said, welcome, and I'd like to turn it over now to our executive director, Victoria Dangle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I share Gerard Drohan's words in welcoming each and every one of you to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. I am also a daughter of a General Society president, so there's lots of generational themes happening tonight, but we'll leave that for Polly to get into. I am so pleased to welcome you here this evening to this very, very special event, which is the book launch of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, A History, with author Polly Guérin and published by History Press. I first met Polly Guérin when she spoke here to promote her book, The Cooper-Hewitt Dynasty, and after that she approached me about a book for the General Society, but I'll also leave that tale to Polly. Of course, we received this idea very enthusiastically, and it grew and it grew. Because, Polly, from the bottom of my heart, you're a friend, you're a champion of the work of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. You spent devoted hours in the library and became a part of the family. You really did. And we feel so blessed and so fortunate that you wrote this tale for us. You captured 230 years of history in a relatively short period of time with your dutiful work schedule, and she is dutiful and disciplined. And again, thank you so much, and it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Polly Guérin. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And hello, everyone. I'm so pleased that so many of my friends and so many people who I'd love to know later are here tonight. So, let me get myself set up, please. The General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York is a story that really needed to be told, because the rebirth of the City of New York after the American Revolution coincides with the founding of the Society in 1785. The book documents the transformation of this organization that has gone through the many years from the War of 1812, the Civil War, 2 World Wars, and 9/11. The Society is as relevant today as it was in 1785 and continues on its path of invention and innovation to the present day is 230th anniversary year 2015. Its logo, the hammer in hand motto, has always identified with the skilled craftsman, as does its motto, by hammer in hand all arts do stand. Yeah? The Society, one of the oldest organizations of its kind in the United States, has kept its records for over 2 centuries, a record to its ancestors, the brothers as they were called then, who founded the organization. New York, however, at this time had been occupied by the British during the entire occupation, and it suffered the most. The devastation of the war had untold effects, and the citizens of New York had strong reserve to rebuild. The last boatload of the British departed from New York City in 1783. By then, most of the city was burned to ashes. It was the worst of times. The city was financially broke, and valuable records had been lost to the flames. It was a city, however, that would emerge from the ashes to reclaim its position in seagoing commerce and world leadership. Ready enabled in the city of over 23,000 people at that time were the skilled craftsmen eager to set the city back on its feet. By 1785, a mere 2 years after the British left, the craftsmen and artisans and tradesmen would band together and create an organization that would lead the city in brotherhood, philanthropy, education, and later a library. At this time, French-American architect Charles Lafont was hired to refurbish Federal Hall, and New York served as the capital of the United States for 2 years, and preparations were made to celebrate. One day in 1795, the thunder of a gun salute from the battery brought the citizens of Old New York to their feet as it signaled that George Washington was sworn in as the first president of the United States. This detail of Old New York Harbor, the gateway to commerce and global markets, identifies with the shipwrights, millwrights, coopers, and ship carpenters and blacksmiths who made a living primarily from its harbor, from the repair and servicing of ships. In those early days, some of the world's greatest shipbuilders were located on the East River in a magnificent display of shipbuilding activity. The craftsmen and the tradesmen continued to meet on a regular basis and decided to organize. At first, they called themselves the General Committee of Mechanics and held their first formal meeting at Walter Hyer's Tavern in Lower Manhattan on November 17, 1785. The far-sighted 22 members of the General Committee of Mechanics were an interesting mix of skilled craftsmen, including Robert Boyd, a blacksmith. Of special note is John Berger, a silversmith, who regulated coins for the new government, and the fact that Washington carried a genteel cutting sword, which was made by John Bailey, who is listed here as a cutler. Anthony Post and Ebenezer Young, both ship carpenters, and George Taylor, a ship joiner, were among the ship-related members of the society. Then, too, there was Joseph J. Wood, a cooper, a maker of barrels, Robert Manley, a coachmaker, a great trade at this time of horse-drawn carriages, and John Stagg, a mason and master builder, and, of course, many others. They set about establishing themselves as a fraternal organization and laid down rules for membership, an initiation fee, and dues. Honesty, integrity, and commitment were the hallmarks of their leadership. Their early activity focused on improving the commercial condition in Old New York and to encourage the mutual benefit of its members, the skilled craftsmen and artisans. In addition, it was one of the first organizations to establish philanthropy to aid their sick members, widows, and orphan children. This painting, titled "From Riches to Poverty," says it all. It symbolizes the General Society's mandate to care for its members, widows, and children. One day, Brother William H. Webb, one of the great shipbuilders, saw this painting by Archibald Arnold in an art gallery in New Orleans and said, "I was almost brought to tears." Later, he donated the painting to the society, where it hangs in the stately assembly room today. The Constitution Parade in 1788 was a magnificent spectacle of 10 divisions of craftsmen, tradesmen, and dignitaries, which were set up to exhibit the pride and products of the city's craftsmen. The parade was brought about because New York City was among the laggards in signing the Constitution, and the craftsmen and tradesmen united to influence the decision-makers in Poughkeepsie. The most striking contingent was the 8th Division, in which some cartmen marched with their white frocks and carried a banner, "Behold the Federal Ship of Fame, the Hamilton we call her name." Please note, George Washington atop the fort as he greets the citizens of Old New York in their tri-corner hats and period attire. The parade had the desired effect, and in July of that year, New York became the 11th state to ratify the Constitution. The General Committee of Mechanics continued to hold meetings and was sufficiently proud of its substantial membership that they decided to engage Edwin Goodwin to create a membership certificate with the symbols in the four corners to illustrate the organization's activity. The hammer in hand symbol dominates the certificate. Subsequently, the organization made a significant name change and decided to improve upon the General Committee of Mechanics title and took the name by which it is known 230 years after its founding, the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York. In its abbreviated form, we refer to it as the General Society, or the GSMT. Francis Tavern was now serving as the Society's meeting place. In 1787, a new chairman, Society member John Campbell, a former general in the Continental Army, was selected. It is significant to note that General Campbell is the grandfather of Peter Cooper, the founder of the Cooper Union, and he also became a member of the Society. At this time, foreign goods were flooding the market, and the Society became concerned about tariff protection as it affected the livelihood of its members. Campbell said, "Every zealous and intelligent friend to the prosperity of this country must view with particular regret the impediments with which foreign importation has embarrassed the infant arts in America." At a meeting in 1789, it was resolved to petition the federal government to enact protection tariffs. Robert Boyd, former first chairman, returned to head up the Society as president in 1792. At this time, membership was greatly growing in influence, and the Society decided to apply for a charter of incorporation, which was passed on March 14, 1792. The Society was not only known for its solvency in business, but continued to take care of its own with philanthropic surge. Although at times it loaned money to its needy members, it required that integrity prevail, saying, "On its private transactions, be silent to the grave." The brothers of the Society, whose contributions to the city's rebirth played a pivotal role in its physical and cultural expansion, include John McComb Jr., who was the master architect of the new City Hall, as pictured in the aquatinta here by W.G. Wall. In addition to McComb, other prominent men who built City Hall, all members of the Society, included Abraham Labach, master stone cutter, Anthony Steenbeck and Arthur Smith, master masons, Joseph Newton, master carpenter, and sculptor John Lemaire. It is the oldest City Hall in the United States and still serves its original function, such as the office of the mayor of the City of New York and the chambers of the New York City Council. Duncan Phyfe, America's most celebrated cabinet maker, a prominent member of the Society, had his shop and warehouse at 172 Fulton Street and became so popular that his furniture was in vast demand. In those early years, Duncan Phyfe had a direct hand in greatly influencing the refined taste of New Yorkers and attracted eager customers. One lady, an indignant Sarah Elliott Huger, said to a friend in 1816, "I waited in company with a dozen others at least an hour in his cold shop, and after all was obliged to return home without seeing the great man." Duncan Phyfe's style also influenced other cabinet makers, including Society member John Hewitt, the father of Abram Stevens Hewitt. The success of the General Society's educational programs had a great influence on many of its members, who became pioneers of American education and established institutions that bear their name. Two such men were Peter Cooper and his son, Abram Stevens Hewitt, who are best remembered for establishing the Educational Institute, the Cooper Union. It may have been Peter Cooper's money and vision, but it was Abram Stevens Hewitt, pictured here, the one-time mayor of the City of New York, 1887-1888, who oversaw the building's construction, handled finances, and served as director, like a college president, for over 40 years. During Peter Cooper's long life, he financed many scientific and individual undertakings, and the laying of the Atlantic cable in 1858, which shortened communication with Europe to minutes, was considered the 19th century's equivalent of putting a man on the moon. And the GMST is proud to display a portion of the Atlantic cable in the executive offices today. It is interesting to note that Abraham Stevens Hewitt was the father of the Hewitt sisters, Sarah and Eleanor, who were also the granddaughters of Peter Cooper. They founded the museum that is known today as the Cooper-Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. Charles Pratt, another General Society member, became a very rich man when he sold the Astor Oil Company to John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil in 1874. Here is the first building to house the Pratt Institute when its students arrived for opening day in 1899. The publication, Scientific American, declared, "The Institute is an ornament to the city and a credit to the country at large." The remarkable construction of the USS Dunderberg required a vast number of craftsmen, including shipwrights, ship joiners, ship carpenters, and many more, working on the greatest man of war in the world in William H. Webb's shipyard, as described in Harper's Weekly in 1863. In the early years, men of great wealth also took a profound interest in the organization. One such individual was Society member Andrew Carnegie, a man of great justice and generosity, who during his lifetime gave over $500,000 toward the Society's expansion and improvements. Carnegie once remarked, "I would rather be the grandson of one who could teach the art of craftsmanship than the descendant of 30 worthless dukes." Cornelius de Lameta was for 41 years an active member of the Society and served as president. And at the same time, he elevated his Phoenix foundry as a major force in developing some of the most revolutionary propulsions of the day. Here is the ironclad ship and monitor in combat with the Merrimack in a lithograph by Correa and Ives. And yes, Mr. Correa was also a member of the Society. During the Civil War, the Society did their share in the task of saving the Republic. Pictured here, the 1st Volunteer Engineer Regiment became this military's Army Corps of Engineers. It was composed exclusively of craftsmen mechanics, many of whom were members of the Society who volunteered for the Union Army in 1861. The war flags, tattered and torn, were delivered back to the Society in 1868. By the time of the Society's centennial celebration, it was a highly respected organization known for its level-headed approach to its responsibilities, its public contributions, and its service to the citizens of New York. The New York Sunday Times wrote, "The General Society shared and helped to bring about the remarkable growth of a remarkable city." It was time to celebrate. And in 1885 at Delmonico's, the most brilliant dining place of the era, which heretofore gentlemen-only banquets were held, the ladies were invited for the first time. The New York World described the event as follows. Around the 7 long tables were grouped the unostentatious representatives of industries that were the backbone and the heart of the city in all its stages of development. But the feature of the occasion was the presence of so many ladies, wives and sisters, daughters and sweethearts of the gentlemen. Please note Mr. Carnegie on the dais. This impressive bronze hammer-in-hand sculpture for years was over the door of the General Society's Mechanics Bank at 33 Wall Street. And from 1810 to 1837, it was one of the largest banks in the United States. The General Society's various activities included loaning money in low interest rates to its members, and it made numerous wise real estate investments. However, with the cholera epidemic and the massive fire that swept through New York in 1835, the bank's extensive real estate holdings suffered the consequences and contributed to the demise of the bank. The Mechanics Bank was finally incorporated into the Chase National Bank. This impressive hammer-in-hand artifact is now exhibited on the wall above the Society's grand staircase outside. Throughout the Society's growth, it moved to larger quarters and eventually purchased the former Berkeley School for Boys in 1899, which opened to celebrate new uses in 1900. The library's main reading room, in which you are sitting, was the former ground floor drill hall. The facade of the building is a New York City landmark, and the building itself is on the National Register of Historic Places. In this unique setting, the General Society continues to operation with a treasure trove of books dating back to the 18th century and earlier. The society was deeply concerned about the education of its members' children, as only the wealthy could afford tutors, and the public schools did not exist. In response to this neglect, in 1820, the society established a day school for the education of its members' students, and by 1835, the school began to be referred to as the mechanics school. However, in 1858, when New York City established the public school system, the General Society decided the mechanics school to become a night school for older students who worked during the day, and eventually taking the name by which it's still known today, Mechanics Institute. The General Society minutes reported, "The school has fulfilled its mission. Its work is done. For nearly 40 years, we have cherished and sustained it, an honor to our society, a blessing to its members and children, and an important public benefit." Pictured here are young men in studious pursuit at the Mechanics Institute, which is proud of its heritage and is at the forefront of education today, the only free tuition education facility of its kind in the United States, located right here in this building on 44th Street, with classes that now include diversified curriculum and courses in advanced high-tech studies. Women were also admitted to the Mechanics Institute. A young woman wrote, "I wish to state that I feel very grateful to the members of your society for all that they have done for me. Before I studied stenography and typewriting, I worked at dressmaking with long hours and very small wages. But thanks to the instruction I received in your school, I am able to fill the position of stenographer and typewriter in a law firm where my work is very pleasant and my salary remunerative." Throughout the Society's long and progressive history, it owns several buildings to house their educational facility and library. This montage shows the location of the General Society from their first building in 1802 to 1831, 1843, 1877, and finally its permanent home, 1899. "Build yourself, build New York" is the heroic slogan of the tuition-free Mechanics Institute. Each year, students enroll in electrical technology, construction project management, plumbing design, and also historical preservation, to name a few. In step with advances in education, the Institute offers CAD, computer-aided design, BIM, building information modeling, and up-to-the-minute state-of-the-art training. The building and construction industries value the Institute students who continue to build New York. The General Society's Apprentices Library had parallel growth with the Mechanics School, and every time the school moved, the library moved along with it to larger quarters. Society member Thomas Mercian, president of the Society in 1827, is acknowledged as the principal force behind establishing the Apprentice Library, as it was called then. Here is the General Society Library, as it's called today, with its multi-level stacks, a soaring skylight, and Wi-Fi connection for the Mechanics Institute students, library members, scholars, and researchers. And it is the site of numerous educational and cultural programs and lectures. As early as 1837, the Society established a series of lectures in the fields of chemistry and science given by prominent men of the day, the Honorable Horace Greeley, editor of the New York Journal, and the Reverend Henry Ward Beecher. The Society continues to enrich and improve the lives of New Yorkers through the current Labor Landmarks of Literature lecture series, which encourage public awareness of the landmark environment. The Artisan Lecture Series promotes the work of skilled craftsmen to ensure their unique knowledge is understood and carried forth for future generations. In celebration of the Society's 230th anniversary, the Society commemorated its original theme by Hammer in Hand, All Arts Do Stand, and calling it the home of the artisan. For example, Jeff Green, president of Evergreen Architectural Arts, was a guest speaker at the Artisan Lecture Series in April this year. Here, Evergreen conservation technicians and skilled artisans restore the historic Empire State Building's Art Deco mural, handiwork that reminds us that craftsmen and artisans continue to rebuild New York. For instance, Society member John Wyatt, master ornamental metalworker, is a living example of a skilled craftsman working by hand in his workshop, creating another masterpiece. And this is the gold leaf award designed by Jean, sculptured in wrought iron with gold leaf covering the leaves, presented to the Craftsman Award members in 2011. Wait a second. The General Society building, located in the culturally rich neighborhood of Literary Row on West 44th Street, was the ideal setting for another venue. The New York Center for Independent Publishing, which was founded as the Small Press Center and lasted from 1984 to around 2010. This montage of cover art from the Small Press book fairs honors the legacies of Marion Moore, Walt Whitman, Ernest Hemingway, and St. Vincent Millay. The list of prestigious writers who spoke at the JMSD included Tom Wolfe, Alice Walker, Mary Higgins Clark, and George Plimpton. And on the occasion of the Society's 200th anniversary, Brendan Gill offered a lecture on the illustrious Literary Row neighborhood. It was a fitting tribute to the General Society, which in this 230th year continues as the epicenter of lectures on West 44th Street. To this end, the Society continues to provide New Yorkers with an innovative program and is always cognizant of significant historical events. For instance, the Society was honored to present in October 2014 a showing Irish artist-photographer Marcus Robinson's award-winning documentary film, Rebuilding the World Trade Center. Rebuilding tells the story of architecture and engineering, but focuses on the hero laborers, craftsmen, and artisans who built the structure. The General Society's award programs recognize those members in the building and construction industry who continue to build a better future for New Yorkers. At the annual Craftsmanship Awards ceremony benefiting the Mechanics Institute, Jay Badam, President and Chief Operating Officer of Tishman Construction Corporation, presents the 2012 Craftsmanship Award to Charles D. Avolio of Turner Construction Company. In 2013, Michael De La Rocca accepted the Craftsmanship Award from Executive Director Victoria A. Dangle and the General Society's president at that time, Gottfried Weiss Gerber. Annual Civic Leadership Awards are also given to industry innovators, and in 2013, the Society created a new award, Excellence in Building Technology. This congratulatory letter from Governor Cuomo in 2013 says it all, which in part reads to the Mechanics Institute. He wrote, "The General Society furthered the building and construction industry in New York City, creating a trained workforce and a path to the advancement in various trades through tuition-free education and development." Governor Cuomo concluded, "I commend the leadership and membership of the General Society for its proven dedication to providing service to the people of New York City." Although the Mechanics Institute is proud of its current graduates, the General Society's archives provide records of members whose families continue to be represented in the building and construction industry. This image presents Jack Resnick's Mechanics Institute registration card, and Jonathan D. Resnick, president of Jack Resnick and Sons, remembers his grandfather who was enrolled in the plumbing program. And there is, among others, Charles D. Benedictis, Senior Managing Director and Senior Advisor of Design and Construction, Tishman Speyer Properties, who is justly proud of the memory of his father, Anthony de Benedictis, who graduated from the Mechanics Institute in 1927 and was always proud to display his diploma. The General Society has always observed annual patriotic holidays, and here is Gerard A. Dangle, the General Society president of 1982, at the podium in a welcoming address at the Independence Day celebration, July 7th, he said, "Withal, I believe it can be said that the interest of the artisan, the mechanic, and the craftsman, and the commitment to excellence that he represents will always be part of any future." In the then and there new chapter of the book, the summation of artifacts and memorabilia and the in-house Lock Museum includes a treasure trove of documents, including the General Society's Historic Registry book, which contains 4,500 member signatures from 1785 to the present. Please note Andrew Carnegie's signature, just around here, number 3184 on the right-hand page. New Yorkers take special pride participating in historic events, and of particular significance is the last flag flying over the ruins of the World Trade Center. After the national 9/11 flag traveled to 50 states, the GSMT was privileged to have this flag hanging from the library's three-story stacks in 2012 at a ceremony commemorating the fateful day. The flag was later delivered to the 9/11 Museum. At the Independence Day celebration held in the General Society Library in 2014, as always, there is a complete reading of the Declaration of Independence, key speeches, the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner, and conviviality. Board meetings and other important committee sessions are held in the Society's stately assembly room, where if you look closely, there's a portrait of Thomas Mercier, the force behind establishing the library, now called the Society Library, wherein you sit. Please note the painting From Rags to Riches to Poverty, which I mentioned earlier on the side wall center. This bronze tablet memorial perpetuates the memory of the founders, the 22 founders in 1785. A point of contention was made in 1894 by Brother Abram Hewitt regarding his grandfather John Campbell's name being omitted from the tablet. The omission of Campbell's name can best be explained that although he was one of the early founders of the society, he did not become a member till 1786, a year after the organization's founding. The General Society has always been in the forefront of presenting programs that illustrate the artisan's handworkmanship that identifies with its members and the motto by hammer in hand, all arts to stand. For instance, last October, master framers Eli Wilner and Company brought history and current events together in an artisan lecture, The Story of How an American Masterpiece Was Replicated, in which the ornately carved gilt frame for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Washington crossing the Delaware, is pictured here. On the occasion of the annual Craftsmanship and Civic Leadership Awards in 2014, the proclamation from Manhattan Borough President Gail A. Brewer sums up the General Society's vital role in New York City. Briefly in part, it reads, "The Society's educational, philanthropic, and cultural programs provide vocational guidance and development opportunities to New Yorkers from all backgrounds. The Society's Mechanics Institute, one of the city's first free schools, founded in 1820, continues to provide tuition-free evening education to trades-related content and a unique service to improve job opportunity for New Yorkers in the building and construction industry. The Society's public lecture series, since 1837, brings master artisans who discuss the intricacies of their trade. The Society organizes the annual Craftsmanship and Civic Leadership Awards, which support the Mechanics Institute programs." In summation, the Society continues to honor its motto, by hammer in hand, all arts to stand, and never forgets its origins, which rose in tandem with New York City sisters to such prominence. And it honors the building and construction industry, which is so brilliantly woven into the fabric of the General Society's history. While the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, the City of New York, reveres its ancestors, the organization advances forward in the footsteps of history and continues to serve New Yorkers as the home of the artisan. With its celebrated lecture series, diversified cultural and educational programs, patriotic observances, sustains the Mechanics Institute with an innovative and inventive spirit today and all the tomorrows to come. Thank you. I would just like to recognize several people at the General Society whose contributions mean so much to me, and this book could never have been written without them. Victoria A. Dangle, the Executive Director, Angela Vigorito, the General Society Archivist, and Karen Taylor, Program Manager, Meg Stanton, the Mechanics Institute Registrar, Penny Spector, the General Society Newsletter Editor, and Melina Rogers, the General Society Librarian. Thank you for your time.
Would you like to take questions?
Is there anybody who would like to ask a question? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Craftsman.
Well, artisan is more involved with specific, very individualized work. You know, like the ornamental metal worker, Jean Briot, that type of person. Whereas a craftsman was identified, they were called mechanic craftsmen in the old days, meant that you were a skilled craftsman who either did your own work or you hired people to do the work.
Any other questions? Moment.
Yes, sir.
Presently are enrolled in the Institute.
I believe it's over 300, is that correct?
Yeah, around 350.
Yes.
And of the 350, how many are of the female gender?
Well, I think Meg Stanton, who's the registrar, could tell us that.
A really nice.
Well, I've met several women. I know that they have quite a number of women studying here. Yes.
Where does the library derive its funding from, and who?
What did you say, sir?
Where is the funding for the library coming from?
Well, as I mentioned, these various events that take place, the Craftsman Awards, they are all set up financially to benefit the Mechanics Institute financially, as well as there probably are contributions from outside sources as well. Membership. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's it, let's have some conviviality.
One more, Polly. Can anyone, say a retired person that was in a trade or craft, join the Mechanics Institute?
Well, it's not joining the Mechanics Institute. You would become a member of the General Society. Oh, I see. Well, I think that Victoria can best answer that, what the procedure is.
Well, we have library membership, and that's simply filling out a form and supporting the library. It's at some level. And there's General Society membership, which is the traditional membership that you're sponsored by 3 members, and you join a committee. It's an investment of not so much money, but your time for a committee meeting. And we meet monthly, and you join one of the 7 standing committees, and it's a nominal annual fee. So those are pretty much the 2 ways to join. And for the Mechanics Institute, we consider that a student enrollment. And you should be employed in the building trades, because these are courses, let's say where we say where a laborer becomes a foreman. So, and thank you. All right, we have more flowers for Polly. Gosh. On behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, Polly, again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to write our story and helping us through our work, supporting the mission of the Society, and ensuring that this organization will indeed be passed down through future generations of New Yorkers, and that's what we intend to do. So, thank you.
And Polly, we'd like to give you a little memento of this evening in remembrance, a citation. The General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York expresses its gratitude to Polly Guérin, author of The General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, A History, for her dedication and commitment to the General Society. Thank you so much, Polly.
Thank you.